Good afternoon, everybody. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Our panel starts at 1 o'clock today. So welcome to our conversations with alums. Just a couple of housekeeping things as we go through our session today. The sessions are being recorded, so please be aware of that. We do ask that any students who are in attendance, you can keep your cameras off and your mics muted. If you do have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the chat and I will choose questions and ask our panelists to address the questions that you drop into the chat. And then without further ado, I'm gonna quickly introduce our panelists, let them do a little introduction, tell you a little bit about themselves. Hopefully our third panelist will join us as we start this process. But we have Kelsey, Jesse, and then also Matthew should be joining us shortly. So we'll start in order here. So Kelsey, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm happy to see you all here today. I graduated from USF back in 2019 with a degree in psychology and a business certificate. I was an exploratory curriculum major like yourselves, just kind of trying to figure it out when I started at USF. And it was within my first semester that I kind of found psychology and thought, okay, this might be the route for me. And I narrowed that focus down for the remaining 2 years of getting my degree there to industrial organizational psychology. And with that, I pursued a master's at Middle Tennessee State University with that degree in IO psychology. And I graduated from MTSU this past August, and I just started my career at a consulting firm working with public and private sectors.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. Jesse, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good thing. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Doe. I am an actually recent graduate for USF. I graduated this past spring of 2021. I majored in chemistry, but I came into USF as a transfer student. I originally started college at Daytona State College, which is where my hometown is. And an interesting thing about that is that I actually used to be an education major. And then I switched degrees halfway through, going into biochemistry with the intention of going to medical school and pursuing academic medicine in a distant future. So right now, what I'm doing in my gap year is clinical research. I do research at the James A. Haley Veterans Hospital here in Tampa. And with that population, some of the research projects I'm pursuing right now is in transgender healthcare, cardiology and women's health, and vaccine hesitancy given the pandemic situation.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Before we get to our last panelist, again, if you have any questions, please feel free as they're introducing themselves, drop them in the chat and we'll go through your questions. This is going to be a casual hour of them just addressing your questions. I have some pre-prepared questions as well. But now we'll go to our last panelist, Matthew, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Matthew. I'm also a recent graduate. I also graduated in spring of 2021. I was an English major, specifying in professional writing, rhetoric, and technology. And currently I'm at the Boston University School of Law, which is where I'm at right now.
Well, thank you, panelists. I also recognize I didn't introduce myself. My name is Jeremy Turkle. I am the manager of educational and student affairs for our School of Physical Therapy and Rehab Sciences at USF over in the Morsani College of Medicine. So I'll be your moderator for the session. Again, students, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Again, this is going to be some casual conversation addressing any questions you have. But to kind of get us started, first question, what's your biggest piece of advice for finding or selecting a major?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start this one off. An open mind when you're looking for a major. Consider all of your options, such as like passions and interests that you may have, and kind of explore those using department websites. Those websites do contain a lot of useful information, such as maybe department-related events that you can attend to connect with faculty members or other students. And you can also just get a feel of what the department is about and what kind of specialties they may offer within a broad degree, such as psychology or sociology. So that's definitely a recommendation I would have when trying to determine what major you want to declare.
From my perspective, when I entered USF, I kind of had a good idea of what I wanted to pursue. I know it can be kind of tricky just because for a lot of students who want to go to like medical school, first chance, it's like, do I choose health sciences? Do I choose biomedical sciences, chemistry, biology? And I know there's like a lot of emphasis on what type of major you do, but from my experience, a lot of the students that I've taken these classes with, we tend to gravitate. So, okay, a lot of us are going to medical school regardless of our major. So me, I have like a background in chemistry. I'm going to have a strong emphasis on that moving forward, but it isn't that I don't know anything about like biology per se. So I think it's more so what you get out of those classes, and how that's going to help you in your career field, really. So hopefully that kind of eases the tension, because I know it's a big pressure to kind of select one major and then go with it for all 4 years.
I would say the biggest advice I can offer is doing what you're passionate about and what you're enjoying. I came to USF not really having the strongest STEM background, so I knew that wouldn't be something I could really excel in and enjoy, but I was able to find a home in the College of Arts and Sciences doing English because it was a subject I enjoyed in high school, middle school, and something I continue to enjoy to this day. So I would definitely say go with where your passion is.
So that kind of leads into the second part of this question. And again, students who joined us, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll ask our panelists. It sounds like some of you did undergrad at USF and then you're now pursuing master's degree or completed or professional degrees. How did you find that passion and that area of interest for yourselves?
For myself personally, it was speaking with other students within the psychology major and department and doing my own research. And as cheesy as it sounds, I use the labor of pure statistics to get more information and insight into IO psychology, because it is / was still an up and coming field that wasn't fully grounded yet. So research is still being looked at and building upon. So that's kind of how I found my major. And it just seemed like a nice blend between studying human behavior and business, which were two things that I was really passionate about, and still am to this day.
In my experience per se, I'm currently, since I'm in my gap year, it's a little bit different. But the reason for me pursuing the gap year is because I actually graduated with limited research experience moving forward, and I know I wanted to do research in medical school, and also, so it was a good opportunity for me to kind of get an internship and get that experience. That way, when I do apply, I will be seen as a more competitive applicant, and it actually kind of helped me in the long term too, because at least going through this route, I have more time to dedicate to that and more time to network with fellow interns, whether that be undergrads, actual medical students, or with other faculty within the program too. So it's a great way to interact with other people. Now, in addition to that too, it gives me some more time to really pace myself with the MCAT, which I know is a lot of pressure for med students to kind of prepare all throughout their undergrad experience. So, if you need to take that gap year to really emphasize that, then I really encourage it.
My best friend throughout undergrad were the extracurriculars that I was able to be a part of. How I became a lawyer is that I joined the University of South Florida mock trial team, and that helped expose me to litigation, the law, and things of that nature. So extracurriculars help you get an idea of what it's going to be like to be involved in the area that you might plan to go into, expose you to new areas that you might want to go into, and give you the opportunity to talk to people in that field and network with them and ask them, hey, what's a day in your life look like? What's your job look like? Things like that.
We keep leading into my next segments. So the next question is going to be, what was your favorite extracurricular or event at USF, or that you would suggest that students should definitely either get involved with or check out while they're here at the university?
So mine in particular are more related to my department, one being PsyChi, which is a National Honor Society for psychology students. I had the opportunity to be part of the executive board, which really helped me to be plugged into the department and connect with students as well. And then I was also not so much extracurricular activity related to my field, but I worked for campus recreation, which also allowed me to meet a lot of different people with different backgrounds, studying different areas. And so that allowed me to get a better sense of what I wanted to do, just hearing different perspectives of what other people were studying.
And then for me, there were really two professional or things that I did for extracurriculars that kind of like helped me develop as a person. One of those things was the USF AMSA, and in that program, it was actually my stepping stone into going into research. They have these extracurricular courses that you can take. They're kind of non-committal, but they help introduce you to several different professions in the field in terms of what they do, what their specialties are, how they got involved, and then how to encourage, AMSA students to really pursue medicine and their specializations. So in that regards, I had the opportunity to present my very first research project, which was in public health, and it had to do with vaccine hesitancy in regards to like religious exemptions and understanding what's the whole dynamic behind that. And interesting story too, because it was my first attempt at research, but I wasn't very good at it. But I suppose if that's the learning part of it, you're never going to be good at your first time. You kind of just go in and you learn from those experiences, good and bad, and it helps prepare you in the future to become a more competent researcher and a more confident person overall. And that's helped me in the progress. So overall, it was one of those things I really appreciated. Another one that I actually really value is the USF Pride Alliance and QTPOC, which is queer and trans people of color. That is because I identify as a non-binary individual, and as a sexual and racial minority, it's kind of awkward trying to adjust with both different lifestyles. So having that support group of students who are in the same position as I am in terms of their lived experiences has really helped give me the confidence to kind of be comfortable with my own identity moving forward. And really nowadays, I'm able to really manifest that confidence in forms of advocacy. And so I really encourage, any students who are in the same boat to really seek out those organizations that help you feel more comfortable and, become part of the USF family.
I would say, excuse me, the Office of Undergraduate Research was a big help for me in developing my writing abilities and my researching abilities. Same with the Writing Center. I know those feel like the answers an English major should give, but I'm genuine when I say they were a big help in helping me discover how to even better enjoy my major. In terms of like legal things, the mock trial team was a big one. It really helped expose me to public speaking, improve my public speaking skills, how to stand before an actual judge and like present a coherent argument, things like that. And similarly, an organization I actually started is Minorities in Pre-Law at USF. It's an organization for racial minorities, women, and LGBTQ folks who want to go into the law. And considering the law is 86% white, 63% male, it's a big help to finding people who look like you, think like you, and things like that.
There was a question in the chat. Some of you mentioned some different student organizations. You could maybe type some of the names in the chat for them. Jesse, specifically, AMSA, is that the American Medical Student Association? I might get it wrong. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
But if there's some others that you mentioned, if you could type them in the chat, that'd be helpful for some of our students. Again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll ask the panelists here. Next question, what's one of the things that surprised you when you started with your major in your career or post-graduation life? Like what was one of the things that surprised you?
I think for myself, what surprised me the most about psychology and then IO psychology specifically was just how well I could apply what I learned to what I'm doing right now in my job. That was a huge factor for me when deciding my major, was how applicable can I make this to my future career. And through my studies at USF and at my master's program institution, I've really built a strong foundation of knowledge and skills and abilities that I can use in my career. So that was definitely a shock to know how much I could apply and how much I've learned and grown. But that was definitely a contributing factor to selecting that major, was just the real life application that I saw potential in.
For me, it was surprising in a sense that I actually came in with some insecurities, because as a transfer student with an education background, my sciences was decent, but it wasn't that strong. And so I kind of like had doubts of whether or not, I was competent enough to really pursue this major. And then going on to medical school, it was even more anxiety. And I know that was more me with my personal problems, but I mean, having gone through that, there's really, in that time frame of those 2 years, there was really a lot of time for me to grow and to connect with my faculty members, address those concerns. And a lot of the faculty that I find are very understanding and compassionate when it comes to wanting to help your students succeed. So in those situations, reaching out to not just the faculty members, but with the counseling services really helps bolster that confidence, especially when you feel like you're lacking that. And so that kind of really helped me. But in the long run, I've actually noticed that my background in education has actually helped me a little bit, coming from a different perspective. It's like I'm able to relay that information a little bit more clearly with my other fellow students. And it also helps me think of things in a more academic sense. And going into academic medicine as a future career is definitely relevant in that field. So overall, those experiences are what you take from it. So that's what I've learned.
Would you mind repeating the question really quick?
Yeah, what was one of the things after you graduated from your undergrad that kind of surprised you entering the field or graduate school that kind of surprised you?
I would say how inviting people are in the legal community. Usually when you think of lawyers, you think of these people that isolate themselves and only either do cases, or they're public defenders who are trying to help change the world. But everyone in the legal community is very inviting to people that are interested in it. They're always more than happy to sit down with you, speak to you, have coffee with you, just to talk about what they do, what law school is going to be like, help you with applications, things like that.
What is the culture like, either where you work currently or in your graduate program?
So I can speak a little bit better to my master's degree culture, because I'm still relatively new to the company that I'm working for. So I'm still kind of getting a feel of what that's like. But for my master's degree at Middle Tennessee State, it was a very warm and welcoming culture, very inviting. Definitely felt like a strong, supportive community that I found there, especially being far away from home where I have family and friends in Florida. It was nice to have that network in Tennessee that I could rely on, especially due to the extreme rigor of the program in itself. One of the perks about that program is we were based on a cohort model. And what that is essentially is you go through the 2 years of the program with other individuals or a group of other individuals. So for instance, in my cohort, it was 14 individuals plus myself included. And so having those people to rely on and to just talk through all the challenges and difficulties that we were going through in the program and in our personal lives really built that strong relationships that I needed to get through that program. And the faculty members as well were very warm and welcoming. I definitely felt like I had the opportunity for more interpersonal interactions with faculty members in grad school than in undergrad. That's just because they're a little bit more easily accessible. because their sole focus was us master's students, and of course some undergraduate students as well. But definitely got that more one-on-one attention that really helped to grow and develop me in a master's program.
In my experience, I would say the work environment in clinical research is actually really similar to that for the undergrad student experience, in that you are there with a whole bunch of other students, and they're all interns, and you're there to learn what it is to actually pursue clinical research, because it is a little bit different from like wet lab research. And in my experience, everyone there is really supportive. We each have our own different interests, which kind of makes it interesting, but we do help each other out in terms of, like, let's say we want someone to look over our protocol, our draft, our research question, make sure that everything kind of makes sense. And then we have that. And then we also have the faculty members who are there to mentor us and make sure that we are providing quality work and doing our best effort. So it is a very supportive environment. We crack jokes all the time too, so it's very casual in the sense that we all get along with each other. And but there's those occasional moments, when we have patients and we want to establish a very good care with them. So it's a very good mix, I would say.
Yeah, I would say law school is very similar. Everyone is very much, at least at Boston University, trying to support each other and make sure we all succeed and all graduate. I know a lot of other law schools have different cultures. It varies by where in the US you go, things like that. Some places are a lot more competitive, but at least at BU, it's a very warm and inviting community. I will say you will hear a lot of bad jokes about cases that you've read, so be ready for that.
Just another reminder, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll ask the panelists. Next one, you kind of mentioned some of these with the Writing Center, but what are some resources at USF that helped you maybe inside the classroom or outside the classroom, whether it be a department, an office, a service that USF provided?
Yes, there's one particular resource slash service that kind of stands out to me, especially when I was still considered an exploratory curriculum major, which it was somewhere in the careers department. I had the opportunity to do a one-on-one counseling session with a faculty advisor who I was able to just kind of speak my mind openly about the different degrees or career paths that I was interested in. And he kind of just sat there, let me talk, asked a couple of questions, and kind of guided me to an end result of a major that I wanted to declare, which was psychology. So just having that interaction in the Careers Services Center really helped me to kind of come to the realization of what I wanted to do with my career.
For me, I have two resources that I kind of found were very, very helpful. They're both people, by the way. And the first one was for pre-health advising. His name is Anthony Iannelli. And when you talk to him, he kind of helps you kind of like guide what your track is in terms of where are you right now in terms of your pursuit for undergraduate medicine. What are your intentions going in for the future? Do you want to take a gap year? What kind of colleges do you want or university you want to apply to for medical school? So it was really good at getting all of that information and getting that structured. And then the other thing too was that Anthony's a very great resource in terms of discovering new types of programs and internships available for all the pre-med students. He does the posts for pre-health advising, so if you get a couple emails from them saying, hey, we've got a new internship for y'all, that would be from him. And then the other one that I found actually was really a great help for me was Christina Yelvington. And this is specifically for LGBTQ students who are trying to find resources, organizations to connect with. Maybe they need counseling services, and you can talk to Christina and she's able to provide all of that information with you. And I honestly, I love both of them so much. I think they've been such a great influence in my life.
I stand Christina. She was a big help to me as well. So it's funny that you mentioned her. Along with that, I would say in the English department, Mike Stowe, your academic advisor, he's a big help with helping you chart out what you want to do during undergrad, following undergrad, while you're in undergrad, things like that. And also, your professors will be a big resource, even beyond just talking about what happened in class. They are more than willing to listen to your thoughts on what you want to do, where you want to go, and share their advice, their experience, and their research as well.
Anthony's great. So I'll thumbs up Anthony. I dropped in the pre-health advising information if you're not aware of that office. And I think Mike Stowe is actually on the call, so a little shout out for Mike there. Next question, what is the best part of your current position, or I know some of you are in graduate school, what's the best part of your current position or being in grad school?
So again, I'm still learning my current role. I'm just eager to be in a career that I'm enjoying and loving. But I would say my favorite or best part about just having completed my master's degree is just the ability to reflect back and identify how much I've grown since that. Just the experiences that I was afforded through actually being able to consult with different agencies in my master's degree program and build on that experience and interacting with clients was a great opportunity, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And I think that was probably the best part about that master's degree was that applied experience that I was given.
For me, one of the most exciting things about being a clinical researcher is actually being able to produce something, this research project that you've invested in, and then having it published and then having poster sessions and being able to present at these conferences, and in a way that your work is actually a contribution to something that's actually really meaningful. And it's kind of a surprise to me too, because coming from a background in chemistry, I didn't really suspect that I'd be going into research for transgender care in the event of like psychology based. So it's kind of weird how life throws you in a different direction than what you think it is, but it's exciting nonetheless, and I've met some really great people along the way.
I would say the best part of law school is the amount of directions you're thrown in while you're here. The way I like to describe law school is it's one big 3-year-long networking event. You're constantly talking to new people, whether it be your professors, other lawyers, your classmates, and hearing about what they do and considering, is this something I want to do, or is this something I would like to work adjacent to? So it's a lot of learning. You're always learning about new things, new areas of the law, new areas that you can practice in, and it opens the door to a lot of different pathways you can go after graduation.
This is a great question, and I think probably a lot of admissions and advisors folks get this question all the time. What type of experiences did you seek or should you seek to ensure that the chosen major was the right fit for you? Like at what moment did you know like this was the path I wanted to choose? Was there an experience or something that happened?
For me, there definitely was a pivotal moment, although I wouldn't say it was an experience per se. But I was sitting in an intro to psych class, and we had briefly touched on the topic of IO psychology, and just listening about that maybe 10-minute lecture on that topic, I was like, that's it. That sounds like a great career path for me. That sounds like the right fit. And then I went home and I did more research just to make sure like that was what I wanted to do. In terms of just actual experiences that I had to get more connected with that major was the Psych Expo that is hosted by the psych department in the fall, usually in October, but I think I saw it in November this year. I would highly recommend attending that if you're interested in psychology, because it's an opportunity for graduate students and faculty members and even undergraduate students to present their research in like a poster board presentation style, and you can just walk along the sidewalk where it's at, and it's very casual, so you can get to know different graduate students and their research and get to know faculty members. And And I know for myself personally, through that experience, I was able to ascertain a research assistantship position. And so that kind of helped me further narrow down and identify IO psychology as the niche part of psychology that I wanted to do.
My experience is actually kind of similar to Kelsey in a sense that there was like a couple of experiences that kind of helped me like generally along the position that I wanted to be in, but there was one pivotal moment. I knew I always wanted to do something in terms of like health, so I did like a COVID volunteering during the pandemic, and then there were a couple of other opportunities I sought out too. Most of them were canceled because of COVID-19, but you know, it's a matter of adjusting to that new lifestyle and trying to just truck along with all the other students. So, volunteering in that health-related field was something that kind of like steered me into this direction. It's like, yes, I do want to actually work with patients because I find this enjoyable and I like interacting with other professionals in the field too. But the pivotal moment I would say was actually when I was pursuing the Global Citizens Project. It's the GCP, and it's a type of project that you can do at USF. They have these like internships like every semester. And in that internship, I was actually able to tackle one of the United Nations sustainability goals for gender equality. And in that project, I was studying transgender women's health. And that, I would say, was the pivotal moment in me wanting to focus specifically on LGBTQ care going forward with medicine. So.
I honestly wouldn't say I had a pivotal moment. Throughout my undergraduate experience, I really just reflected on, was I happy with what I was doing? Was the material interesting to me? Was I doing well in it? Was I having a good time with the people in my department? And I found that home in the English department, as well as with the pre-law community. So those really helped me gauge, like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is the path I want to tread. But while we're mentioning things that you should do within that major, the Humanities Expo, the Undergraduate Humanities Expo, is a great place to present things that you've worked on, whether it be an assignment that you did, a research assignment, or anything of that sort, and you want to talk about it in front of an audience. I would highly recommend doing that.
So we have another question in the chat. Was there ever a time that you struggled with your grades, and how did you come back from that or handle that adversity?
Yeah, so for myself, I never did struggle with grades, but I do credit that to a few tactics and strategies that I used while completing my undergraduate degree, which was prioritizing different assignments just based on due dates and the tasks involved with completing that assignment, as well as just staying organized to keep my head above water. So I would say just keep a positive mindset. Don't get down on yourself and just keep pushing and do the best that you can. And I would also recommend too, just speaking with your professor just about where you're having some troubles or issues maybe, and they can help guide you in the right direction or offer you some other resources to help pull that grade up.
So in my experience, it's actually kind of like my GPA has kind of been like a roller coaster, really. And it's really because it all started when I was a dual enrolled student. I would say that my priorities weren't really aligned. So after graduating high school, my college GPA was actually really low. Like we're talking about just below 2.0. And it took a while, but once I entered back into college, I had this whole different mindset of actually I wanted to pursue something that was meaningful to me, because at the time I was kind of struggling with this crisis of, as a low income first gen student, I didn't want to repeat the cycle that, my parents have gone through. So I decided to take it upon myself to take my academics more seriously. And with those priorities, I was able to help my GPA and help my classes, score a lot better. I sought out help from the Academic Success Center. I talked to faculty mentors. I pretty much did everything I could think of to make myself a better student. And then as a result, my GPA went up. Now, I understand too, because I'm in the situations like where Sometimes life throws curveball at you, and then, sometimes your mental health dips. And in those situations, you have to, again, realign those priorities, making sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can actually still do well in school, but also, be the best version of yourself you can be. And in those situations, GPA may dip, and it did for me. But again, reaching out for help, getting counseling services, talking to friends, it really helps bolster you so that you don't fall as deep as it would have been, And so I would say, now going into medicine, my GPA is at a comfortable 3.7, but it definitely didn't start that way. But I think it just comes to show that, it takes a lot of effort to get from that point forward, but you can do it. It's a possibility. And don't be afraid to reach out to people for help.
Yeah, I really just want to echo that. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, especially when you feel like it's embarrassing to seek help. Like if you don't know or understand a concept or something in class, don't be afraid to reach out to your classmates, your professors, even your advisor sometimes. And along with that, have a personal network of support. Have friends that you can rely on to talk to about many different things, or have someone you could talk to in the counseling center. Just be able to reach out for help, and don't be afraid to do so when you need it.
And I saw Matthew, I think you have to drop out pretty soon because you have class, but before you do, any last piece of advice you would give to our students on the call?
If you're interested in law school, keep BU School of Law in mind. I feel like I have to say that now, but definitely keep it in mind. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks for joining us. Next question, kind of for Kelsey. Since you went to USF for undergrad and then transitioned for a master's degree, is there anything that you changed or did differently from undergrad to your graduate program?
Yeah, so I completed my undergraduate degree in 3 years. So I really accelerated the completion of that degree, which when I had initially started my master's program, I had somewhat had regrets about doing so because I did not have as much research experience that I would have liked to have had coming into my master's degree, because there was a thesis requirement and it felt like a little bit above my head to do something in that nature because I had no real hands-on research experience of my own. But kind of in retrospect, everything worked out just fine without that prior research experience, given the guiding hand of the faculty members that I worked alongside my master's program. But I would say the biggest transition from undergrad to graduate school was the workload and the rigor of that workload. It is another level. So if that is something that you are interested in doing, I would say don't take that decision lightly. And I would start connecting with the faculty members of that program and students who are currently in that program to get a better idea of what the curriculum is like, what the culture is like, just so you have a well-informed decision when it does come time to apply to a master's program.
And then for both of you, thinking about your career path, what's one of the things that you would suggest that students do now if they're thinking about maybe going into some type of clinical research or medical school? Jesse, and then Kelsey, if they're thinking about going into psychology.
Sure. So some things that I would consider, if you were intending to go into medical school or any kind of health profession really, is to keep an open mind in terms of how you want to spend your time, either volunteering or doing internships. There's a lot of opportunities available. I was going through like the AMSA chapter here at USF and through HOSA. I did my toes in a lot of different organizations just to see what they had to offer. And they offer a lot of different things, but you choose what's best for you, right? In that situation, I found out opportunity to do volunteering through COVID testing. And I also was given that opportunity to, present at the AMSA convention. So it was one of those things like you kind of go in, see what they have available, get involved, and then that's when the opportunities start rolling in. But I know for the most part, a lot of health majors are really encouraged to be involved with their communities, whether that's volunteering, internships, medical scribing, just so that you have a good grasp of if is that something you want to do in the future, because it is a really big commitment, going into medical school. And it's many, many years. And then there's also the MCAT, which is a little traumatizing, but but it is what it is, really. I would say that if you were kind of like worried about not having a lot of research experience, because I was in that position, I would say, again, keep an open mind. There are plenty of opportunities that open up even after you graduate. So if it feels like you're going to be taking a gap year, don't feel discouraged about that. It's an opportunity for you to grow as a person, academically, professionally, personally, so try to stay positive about that.
Yeah, so I'd say if you are a general psych major, also keep an open mind in what area or facet of psychology that you're interested in or want to be more connected to, whether it's clinical psychology, social psychology, IO psychology. So just explore all those options. I don't believe when you graduate from USF as a general psych major, you have to say, I'm graduating with a clinical, social, or IO psych degree, because that's they just hand out general psych degrees as far as I'm aware. But by narrowing that down, you can then identify, okay, do I need to seek a higher degree in graduate school, or am I competitive enough to enter the job market with my bachelor's degree here? And so start doing that research a little bit early on, just to figure out if you need to start planning for graduate school application processes, or if you can start, a job search when you graduate, just to keep awareness of what, track you're going to go on, so you can start preparing for that prior to graduation.
So we kind of have a two-part question here. What does your typical day look like in your current role? And then what do you like or dislike about your current job?
So as a clinical researcher, I'm not going to lie, there is a ton of reading to do. And this is because you're trying to establish a foundation for your research question. So in my case, a lot of what I do is LGBTQ research, understanding any types of health inequities, barriers to access, and things like that, especially within the VA population. So once that's established, then we can start formulating a research question, building a study design behind it, having it evaluated by your mentors and peers. And then by the time, it goes through IRB process, does it get approved, does it get rejected? And all of that is taken within the span of like months. So it's basically how it goes down, but and all the while you are still learning how to be a more proficient reader, how to be a more proficient researcher. I would say one thing that it's not something I dislike, but it's something I'm a little bit not comfortable with, is like with confrontations, just because I tend to be really introverted. So having to diffuse situations that, let's say we have like a heated patient come in, or we're trying to explain a protocol. It's not my proficient skill, but it's something that I work on. But overall, I really do like the experience a lot. I feel like I learned plenty of things professionally and personally, and I really do recommend, for anyone interested in research to just get curious and see what's out there.
And my typical day in my career looks different every single day, which is kind of another reason why I picked this field and this career path. One day I could be at an assessment center proctoring a selection process to state troopers. And the next day I could be sitting behind my computer desk doing some research on a new training product for a company. So it really just varies and depends on which company or client we're working with, public or private. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to join this field, was just the day-to-day variety in the work that I do. And then one thing that I initially disliked about my career, but I've grown to really enjoy and love, which is the ambiguity in what we do. So ambiguity does allow for a lot of innovative and creative ideas to come about. So that's kind of why I've grown to enjoy that. While it may be challenging at times, that ability to be creative has helped me grow a lot and think more critically about what I'm doing. So I do like that challenge.
So next question is, what are some good places to look for internships?
So I have 3 recommendations for this. What I used to kind of like help me look for an internship was to utilize the career services. I believe the career services consultant is Adelia Douglas, and she referred me to Handshake. And so once you establish Handshake, it's kind of like LinkedIn. You see like these whole ton of like internships that are related to your profession or career path. And if it's something that interests you, you can apply for the position. And it's the same thing as LinkedIn. The other 2 recommendations I have is again through pre-help advising with Anthony Leonelli. He actually was the one who referred me several different types of internship programs through like public health department for USF. And if for any students who are involved in that, again, get in touch with him. You know, having that network is so important in terms of trying to find new opportunities. There was one more, I don't remember. It just I lost it, but for sure, you know, career services and pre-help advisings were a big one for me.
And I am not as in tune with where the best places to look for internships, but I will echo what Jesse said and also would recommend LinkedIn. I've enjoyed using LinkedIn to search for jobs. I personally, just out of my own concerns, do not use their hyperlinks to access applications because I get worried that it's going to get lost. So I'll just find the job posting, look for it on the actual company's website, and then apply that way.
The other one I might suggest is potentially some faculty and then also your advisors. So Shane is a great resource, or any of your advisors in your particular program probably also have some resources and could probably give you some help with that as well. Next question, did you travel at all during your undergrad or graduate program? And how did your degree integrate with experiences on your trip or travel?
So I had every intention to travel during my undergrad experience, but because I came in during the height of the COVID pandemic, I literally had no opportunity. It was kind of unfortunate. There were several programs that I was really interested in, and there was like this medical abroad program in the Dominican Republic, and as well as medicinal chemistry in Germany. I knew both of the faculty in charge of those programs, and I had a really good rapport with them, so there was a good chance of going, but because of the pandemic, we had to shut those services down. It is my only like one regret, but it wasn't really something I could do anything about in the first place, so I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. But you know, moving forward, there's always plenty of other opportunities to pique your interest in, you know, whatever that is.
Yeah, I'd say I'm similar to Jesse. I did have interest in traveling during undergrad at USF, specifically study abroad, because I thought that would be a great experience. I just never got around to doing it. And then for my graduate program, the coursework was too rigorous and demanding to be able to travel during those 2 years and on top of COVID. But I will say, during my time at my graduate school, we did have the opportunity to have some applied experiences because we did have an internal consulting firm. And so we got to work with local and state agencies in helping them with whether it was selection or training, things of that nature. So those practical experiences working with real clients really helped me to establish and use the knowledge that I had gained from my coursework in a practical setting, which was such a wonderful experience. It really solidified that I had made the right decision to be in this field because it brought out more passion in me than I thought was even there. So I'd say it built on it a lot more.
So the question in chat, if you are both comfortable, if you could maybe drop your emails where students can contact you if they have additional questions after this, if you're comfortable. The other question again, for Jesse, if you're comfortable, somebody's wondering what your stats are for applying to med school.
Okay, I can kind of answer this question, but just because I'm actually not in medical school, now I did take the, I'm practicing for the MCAT. My test date is actually next year on March. Now, that being said, I did take the diagnostic test. It's going to be a grueling experience. I'm not going to lie. 8-hour exam, never fun. But going in cold cut, it was like 500, and that's usually the dead average of like every person who takes the MCAT. So if you score anywhere around there during your undergrad experience, that's usually a good starting point. That way you can kind of like see what kind of areas you need to improve on. For me, it's going to be a different experience for everyone, but for me, in my case, what I really struggled in was in the psych soc section, which was due to the fact that I didn't really have that in my curriculum as an undergrad student. So that's something that I have to patch up on my own. Now, that was granted like 6 months ago that I took the diagnostic exam. So I've been practicing and studying, you know, throughout the entire the tenure of like undergrad student, gap year student, you know. And I would say if you're going to prepare for the MCAT, definitely plan out how much time you're going to invest, because it is a huge commitment. I know a lot of students, they tend to do like this concentrated like 4-month program where they spend literally full-time 40 hours a week studying for the MCAT. For me, it was a different experience. I chose to stretch it out just a little bit, up to 6 to 8 months, but do like 15 to 20 hours a week. And yes, you do need to use that much time to study for the MCAT because there's so much content on there. It might drive you insane, but I mean, everyone's going to go through it who's applying for medical school. I would say on top of that, though, definitely keep an open mind to what kind of resources are available for the MCAT. There's paid opportunities, but there's also free ones available to you as students. And if you need help trying to look for them, again, free health advising has been a lifesaver so many times. And then, you know, just kind of chug along. If you do well in your academics and you're intentional about learning that content, then it'll be easier to study for an MCAT for sure. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Next question, what type of career ladders exist within your industries?
Yeah, so for IO psychology, it kind of just depends first on if you get a master's or a PhD. So for instance, with a master's, you can get more of an applied job, which is actually working for companies, versus a PhD. You can work for a company, or you can go back and be a professor within the psychology realm. So that's an option there. I know for myself with just my master's right now, and even if you did have a PhD, working for companies, you can work for public or private sectors as a consultant, or you can be a little bit more specific or narrow in the focus of a company. So for instance, there's diversity and inclusivity. That's a potential option. There is specific training and development opportunities, organizational development, which is a little bit more global in the context of an organization. So it kind of just depends on which part of IO psychology you're interested in. And if you're at the master's or PhD level, that'll kind of direct your career path.
In terms of healthcare, there's actually quite a bit of variety in terms of what you could do as like your first job into that profession. But really, it's based on what you want to do. So if clinical research is something that you feel is interesting to you, then definitely you could go into those internship programs that do eventually, some of them do eventually lead to those paid positions. So there's a really good connection for you to kind of like grow in that field. But there's also opportunities for anyone who's interested in doing wet lab research. You can come in as a lab assistant. Moffitt Cancer Center does release like continual new positions available, and a lot of them are for students anyhow. So I would look into their website to see what kind of positions they have open. And then if you feel like that's something you want to do, get in touch with Career Services, establish your CV or resume, and then you got a good shot at getting in. Now, I would say some other opportunities too for anyone interested in like patient care. I know medical scribing is a really big one. It's pretty popular, and there's always positions available through Handshake. So there's a lot of opportunities to really get involved in healthcare if that's something that you really want to do. Now, the one caveat to all of that is that when you do apply for like medical school, one of the questions that they're going to ask you is like, what kind of experiences did you pull from this job opportunity? Because they always want to see what's important to you and why you chose to pursue that job in the first place. It's not just like a check off the box kind of deal. Really, kind of be intentional about what kind of job you're looking for, what kind of experiences you want to pull from it, and how that's going to help you become a better health professional.
So in our last 5 minutes, I guess the last piece of advice, what is one thing that you hope that students will take away from our chat today?
Yeah, so I'll kind of add something that wasn't mentioned, but like definitely important and relevant is while you're looking to declare that major, know that once you have, you're not entirely pigeonholed into that degree. If it's just not for you, then that's okay too. Go and explore your other options that you had prior to, or just explore other options in general. And just know that like this is the beginning of such an incredible journey. So enjoy every minute of it, especially in undergrad. I wish I could go back to those times. It was a lot of fun. So just definitely enjoy it and know that once you select that degree, it's not an end all be all, but if it is, that's also great too.
In my situation, any advice I would offer, especially for transfer students, is to not get super hung up on trying to set deadlines for yourself in terms of how to best prepare for medical school. It is a very long journey, and a lot of health professional advisors will tell you that you really want to take the time to grow professionally and personally before you make that commitment. So if you can't get all of that done, your MCAT, your volunteering, internship, everything done in your 4 years of undergrad, then you can take a gap year, you can take 2 gap years. Really, it's all about that personal growth. And don't feel bad if you're going into USF and you want research experiences, but you don't have any. Just give it some time, look for some opportunities, connect with faculty, right? That will give you the best shot and at finding that in the future. So that's all I have to say.
Well, this was great. Thanks, students, for tuning in. Thank you, Kelsey and Jesse, for spending some time and helping our students out and answering some questions. And I wish you both luck and have a great day.